Do you agree with Steve Baker? Should Dominic Cummings resign?
Well, I think what we've heard in the last 24 hours suggests some quite serious allegations against the Prime Minister's chief advisor. And I think people are feeling rightly angry. Millions of people have put their lives on hold, have made huge sacrifices to obey the rules during this period. And we've seen the heartbreak of people not being able to attend funerals of loved ones, not being able to see their family members as they die. And I think people are rightly feeling, is it one rule for us and one rule for the people at the top? And I think there are questions to ask, both in terms of what Dominic Cummings did, but also in terms of the response that we saw yesterday, where we seem to get this rowing back of the rules from minister after minister, suggesting that nothing had been done incorrectly. I think we all heard the Prime Minister very seriously at the start of this lockdown saying, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives, and that's what people did. And if we hadn't have done it, we wouldn't have brought those infection rates down, and we wouldn't have the lowering of the death rate that we're now seeing. And so people are rightly angry, and the Prime Minister, I think, needs to come to the press conference today and answer questions about what happened, what he knew, and what he's going to do about it.
So you clearly want Boris Johnson to front up that press conference, but just to be clear, you don't seem to be calling for Dominic Cummings to resign.
I think this is really serious, and we need some really serious answers. You know, for me as Shadow Policing Minister, you look at the office of the Prime Minister questioning and undermining statements from our police force in Durham. This is very serious, and we need to understand what happened. And we need to cut through the anger that we're all feeling, understandably, about this. We've had the highest death rates in Europe. There are people suffering and people making huge sacrifices for good. And here we have a situation where somebody whose family have symptoms travels halfway across the country, potentially going back and forth again thereafter as well, with the new allegations that we've seen this morning. We've written to Mark Sedwill, the Cabinet Secretary, to say, can you investigate this? Because, you know, undermining the police, breaking the rules is a very serious business, and we need answers, and we need the Prime Minister to come to the press conference today and explain what has happened.
We'll be talking to Grant Shapps later on the programme to put the government side of the story, but the Dominic Cummings defence seems to be that he was worried about his child at a time when his wife was ill with coronavirus. He later came down with COVID-19 as well. I mean, do you have sympathy with that?
We all have sympathy with everybody in this situation because it's been really stressful and really difficult. I know single mums who've had COVID when their child has had to stay with them, and we've had to chip in food to make sure they can eat. Everyone has made incredible sacrifices. We think of Ishmael, the 13-year-old boy whose parents couldn't attend his funeral after he died on his own. If everybody had decided to break the rules, then we wouldn't have brought this infection rate down. And when we heard the Prime Minister, we heard him say, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. He didn't say, or drive 260 miles to Durham if you think that's the right thing to do. That wasn't what we heard, and that wasn't what was said, and that wasn't what everybody else did. And that's why we need answers.
Dominic Cummings, clearly a huge story this morning, but I'm also keen to ask you quickly about something that I know that many parents are going to be concerned about, and that is whether or not schools should be reopening. Some primary school year groups going back to school on the 1st of June. What is Labour's position? Do you think that should happen?
We want the schools to go back. We want our children to be educated. We know it makes a huge difference to their lives, and we know it's good for inequalities as well to get all our kids back into school, but it has to be done correctly. I've done a survey of parents in my constituency. Over 50% are saying we're not ready yet to send our kids back because we need to see more evidence that this is the right thing to do. And I think the key thing is for the government not to play politics with this and to try and pit one group against the other. We need to bring everyone together, the unions, the parent groups, the teachers, and the government, to talk about how to do this, and local government talk about how to make this work as they have done in other places. And we need to make sure that that test, track and trace system that the government has promised by the 1st of June to be in place, which is the only way we get out of this situation. That is the way we end lockdown. That is the way we can all go back to some semblance of normal life. That has to be in place. And there are serious questions about whether the government are rowing back on what they've promised on that front. So we need to see that work done.
So this is what I'm struggling with a little bit here. You say that you want schools to go back, but when it's safe. You say you want to bring everyone together. Now, I mean, no one would disagree with that. But June the 1st is a week away. Surely you need to make some kind of decisive decision. Is Labour supporting some primary-aged children going back to school on June the 1st, yes or no?
Well, of course, lots of children are already in school. My children are, because my husband works in a hospital, so the schools are open. What they're worried about, what teachers are worried about, what the unions are worried about is making sure it's safe. And the government
So
have published...
should more children go back to school on June the 1st?
We need to make sure we've got the test, track and trace in place, and we need to bring all the organisations together so they agree how to do it. That is the point, because at the moment there is confusion. There are parents saying they're not going to send their children back. There are some areas saying they're going to do it, some say they won't. The government need to step up, fill this leadership vacuum, bring the organisations together instead of pitting one against another, and find a solution. And we need to be really clear that that test, track and trace is in place on the 1st of June, because that is the thing that is going to help us all get back to normal.